Hi, everyone. Welcome. I am so honored and excited to be back for another End Well. And I am even more excited to be sharing the stage with Barbara and Alua. Give a big warm welcome to these two. Talk about radical bravery. All right, so we are going to have a beautiful conversation today. I want to start just by introducing our two guests in case anyone here isn't familiar with them, although I think we all are fangirling over Barbara and Alua collectively. Barbara Karnes is a pioneer in hospice education. Her booklet, Gone From My Sight, has helped millions of families understand what dying actually looks like, offering clarity, comfort, and truth at one of the most sacred moments of a person's life. Her work has fundamentally changed how we teach, support, and care for the dying. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you. Can I say something first to
Of course.
all these wonderful people? Thank you for having me here. I have to tell you what, I hurt my leg, and I'm a walker. I generally pace when I talk, so I had to take my shoes off, so I'm grounded. And I'm nervous, but we'll see how I can do without pacing.
Yeah.
So just wanted to set the groundwork here so you know what I'm doing, that I'm,
Maybe we should all take off our shoes.
yeah, it feels good, I'm telling you.
Also here today is Alua Arthur. Alua is a leading voice in the modern death doula movement. Through Going with Grace, Alua brings warmth, humor, radical presence into conversations about mortality, reminding us that when we talk about death, we're really talking about how to live more fully. Welcome, Alua.
Thank you, Claire. It is really an honor to be on the stage with you, Barbara. You have shaped the work of so many of us here, and I am beyond honored to be in this conversation with you and Claire today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, I am too. I feel like I have to have a human moment and just say that my 25-year-old self is here with us as well, because I come to my work as a grief therapist and author from a really personal place of losing both of my parents to cancer when I was young. My mother was already dead, and my father was at the end of his life, and he really wanted to go home and die with hospice, but I was his only caregiver. And at 25, that was really daunting. And the only way it was possible was through hospice and the incredible work and the team that came in, and the blue booklet I received. And all of the support and love enabled me and my father to have such a beautiful ending together. And so I'm always grateful for your work and for the work that Alua is continuing in her movement as well that complements it. I'd love to have you both kind of open just by kind of grounding us in telling us a little bit about each of your individual roles as you understand them in hospice and as a death doula, how you think they complement each other, how they don't compete. We talked about this, but just, touch on those things a little bit to start.
Okay.
And do whatever you want, Barbara. We just want you to be you.
Whatever you want.
Okay. You know what?
Yeah.
I don't need to be a fashion statement. I started in 1982. People couldn't even say the word hospice, let alone know what it was. And I think those 5 years of bedside care is what taught me the dying process. That taught me what we're using today. And I then got into administrative work and all that, but it was the 5 years that were the most important. And I was then, and in my heart I still am, an end-of-life doula, because that's what I did, was what you all are doing today. You're bringing it back. You're bringing it back.
Thank you. Alua?
Well, just to create a little bit of context, this role of the death doula is something that is ancient. You know, it's been happening since all time. As long as humans have been living, humans have been dying, and other humans have been supporting them through it. I think with the advances in medical care, we have the role of hospice and the role of hospice nurses. And even in 1982, as Barbara was starting out in this work and starting to see, it sounds like, the ways in which we could support outside of the medical care model, people were still showing up to support other people in dying. And so today we call it a death doula because we have a fancy term to put on it. But for the time, I mean, it's since time immemorial. I sometimes think of it as the oldest job, but there's something else that they call the oldest profession. So I don't know if this one is it, but I mean, yeah, right? It's always been there. It's always been there. We've always been supporting other people through dying. Now it looks different because we get to support in a way that we can't outside the community care model, which is somebody to come in who provides the emotional, the social, the parasocial, the psychosocial, the spiritual, some of the logistical, and sometimes even some of the legal support around the dying, leaving the medical care to the medical care team. And so as society has shifted, as we've moved away from community-based models of care and we're moving into more individualized and nuclear family-based models of care, the role of the doula has risen in order to fill that role that has been there since all time.
Thank you. Go for it.
We used to have role models on how people died because grandma lived at home and the family was there, and it was a natural part of living. We were born, we experienced, we die. And then along came hospitals, and grandma ended up being in the hospital and died at the end of the hall. And generally, she was alone. And then, as we progressed in our history, we went to nursing facilities. And again, grandma was at the end of the hall, and way too often she was alone. We're coming full circle to grandma's gonna live at home and die at home. She always wanted to. It just wasn't happening. But the problem is now we don't know what dying is like or what to do because we haven't had any role models other than the movies, and they don't count. So we need someone there, and that's hospice, that's end-of-life doulas, to guide, not just to support, but guide those there on what they can do while grandma's dying. It's okay. Oh, okay. Am I going to?
Not at
okay?
all.
More.
We're hanging on every word.
Okay. How many times, I can't tell you, many, I have walked into a room, whether it's in a hospital, nursing facility, or at home, and the family is all standing around the walls of the room. And grandma's here in a hospital bed or her own bed, actively dying. And everyone's standing, hands held, watching, because they don't know what to do. And so it is up to us to support and guide and say, hey, get in bed with grandma. It's okay. Talk to her. We have an idea that we can implement and share with those that are present that will help them create a sacred experience, one that they will carry with them forever, instead of a frightening, scary experience, which so happens now. And so if we can help guide them in this sacred experience, they will have a sacred memory. And think of the wonderful gift that we're all able to give with our knowledge that we bring.
Woo!
Do you want to build on that, Alua?
What more is there to say?
Sorry, okay. As you were saying that, I was again thinking about when I was younger and my father really, he wanted to go home. He wanted to be on hospice. And I remember, I will never forget this moment of sitting in a hospital room with him. He had just ended some treatment and he had been hospitalized as a result. And the social worker and the doctor and all the medical team was there. And they said, we want to put him in a skilled care facility. He can have hospice there if he really wants hospice. And I looked at him. And I saw this look in his eye and I knew what he wanted. And I said, no, I'll take him home. And I was so young. I had no idea what I was doing. I was really scared. And they said, no, it'll be too much. You shouldn't take him home. They really pushed back at me. They resisted and they pushed back at me. And I kept pushing back, as my father's stubborn daughter was taught to do. So I got him home. And we, again, had a beautiful death because the hospice team that came in was so incredible and thorough. But as you were speaking, I was just thinking about how much does the medical system get in the way of that invitation of people coming home to die, helping the families make that choice to take their loved ones home, to feel like they can do it?
Dying is not a medical event. It is an emotional, spiritual event. And yet our medical model treats diseases that people have. End-of-life workers treat people that happen to have diseases. And so we're the front runners of bringing humanity, maybe, emphasis on end of life rather than the medical emphasis that is so often and has been for years been placed on dying. So we have the opportunity, and it's about people. It's not about the disease. Now, I have to qualify so someone doesn't come up to me and say, wait a minute, we do need the physical body addressed. We need the pain management. We need symptom control. We need comfort care. But we don't need medical interventions.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The only thing I'll add here is that I've been noticing more and more how important it is for us to focus on the individual lived experience. As Barbara was saying, to treat the whole person and call to mind their full humanity when caring for them. As people are dying, the totality of their lived experience is also dying. That means all parts of their identity. That means all parts of who they were, the things that they loved, the people that they loved, how they showed up in the world, how they expressed themselves. And so what we get to do uniquely is not only address we address the whole person, but we also address the parts of them that are dying and bring attention to those parts to make sure that those are honored in their dying as well. Yeah, to make the dying experience as unique for that person as possible as their life was.
Yeah, beautiful.
How do you see the relationship with the medical system as a death doula? Is there support from the medical system?
I've been seeing more and more support. Mm-hmm. It's a pleasure to be in the space where dying is occurring, when there are hospice nurses who are present, where we're collaborating. It feels like the best case scenario for the person and for their circle of support to have everybody on the same team when it comes to their dying occurring, as opposed to those of us at odds. And I haven't actually experienced a time in a home where somebody is dying where it feels like there's any friction. It often feels very collaborative, because I would like to believe, and I do believe, that people that get into this work in hospice are doing it with the care of the individual at the forefront. And so when we're together, we're all there with a common goal and are working toward that common goal. Yeah, it's been collaborative. It's felt beautifully collaborative. It wasn't always that way. It wasn't always that way. When I first got started, I called like every hospice I could find in Los Angeles. There was 77 calls. 77 hospices to made space to actually listen to what I had to say about the work that I was doing. For the most part, they said, we already do that, or get out of here, kid, or, we don't, what are you talking about? Like, we already got this. And it was disheartening. But for the people that invited me in and allowed me to be with them while they were talking about the work that they were doing, I saw where we could collaborate even further. That was also, I would say, about 10 years ago. Things have changed significantly in 10 years, and I'm so grateful for it, because now it feels, well, now we're getting calls to come and speak at hospices. Folks want to hear about the work that we're doing, and they are inviting us in rather than us trying to beat down their door like, hey, let's do this together. Now it's saying, no, let's do this together, because we can.
Yeah, great, great. In the 5 years, my goal, as all of hospice nurses at that time, the goal was to be with the patient at the moment of death. And everything that we did led up to that moment of death. And then after the death, we gradually decreased. But the moment of death was the goal, and everything led up to it. So we were with 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever, we were with that family to guide and support them through that moment of death. That was our goal. Today, most family members on hospice are alone when their loved one dies. And that's where you guys come in. I would love to see you and hospice working together so that hospice has the whole deal going. But the end-of-life doula is there for the hours before death and the hours after the death. You don't want just a death call and walk in and pronounce and say, yeah, Dad's dead, and leave and write it down. You need to support and guide that family until the body has left the building. And yet that's not happening. But that's where doulas really, I see that collaboration. And I even know how to do it financially for both. But working together, I want to see that family supported at the moment of death.
How do you feel like hospice is receiving the death doula movement?
I don't know as much as you do about, or any of you doulas know about how you're being received. I really don't have a lot of contact anymore with hospices per se. I'm really concentrate my energy on dying, on end of life, that can be used and taken and absorbed by anyone who wants to listen. But in my mind, it's a perfect duo. It's a perfect duo. How that's being received today, you will know.
It's shifting. It's certainly shifting. When I was, a few years back, I got to sit on the End of Life Doula Advisory Council for the National Hospice and Palliative Care Organization, where the NHPCO invited doulas in to educate about the work that we did to all their member organizations in an effort to increase our visibility and their knowledge of the work that we did. I believe that NEDA, the National End of Life Doula Association, is doing some tremendous work to increase visibility about the work that doulas are doing overall, so that everybody can take notice and continue to invite us in. And there's multiple hospices around the country that are now hiring doulas to come on as staff, or creating collaborative agreement so that the doulas can also support their communities that are on hospice, that are receiving care. It's growing. It's growing. We're just getting started though. You know, the type of care moving forward is going to be incredible. Yeah.
Alua, you mentioned 10 years ago when you were knocking on the doors of the hospices and how things have changed since then. And I imagine you've seen a lot of change, Barbara, since 1982 in the hospice movement. What is it about what recently has changed? I know in the grief realm, we've seen a lot of changes too, and a lot more awareness and discussion around grief. And do you think it's the pandemic? What has shifted in these last 10 years in particular that's really brought stages like this into cultural awareness and such a kind of thirst for these conversations?
Going out on a limb. Money. I think that when we were not for profit, we looked at our work differently than we look at it today. You notice how careful I'm being?
Yes.
We have to help hospices remember what their job is, and that's the patient and the family. And the biggest, best medicine we can give, the best help we've got to give to patients and families is time, is our time spent. And you don't go in with your laptop and fill out all the forms that need to be done. You go in and you say, "Hi, I'm Barbara. I'm going to be your hospice nurse, or I'm going to be your end-of-life doula. Let's get acquainted." And you go in the living room and you sit down, and you don't sit in rooms, chairs across from each other. You sit close so that you can touch when it's appropriate. And you get acquainted. Tell me about John. Tell me about his life. What did he do? What's he like? Before you ever meet John, it's people. And it's the time you spend. And after you've gotten acquainted and know that you're not just socializing, you're creating a bond, you're creating a trust, because we trust people more than we trust agencies and businesses. So you've got to develop that trust. And then you go see John. And then when you leave, no matter what visit it is or who you are, before you go out the door, I want to ask, is there anything else you want to talk about? Did you understand everything that we talked about? And remember, you can call me 24/7. I am always available to help you. This is a scary time, and I'm here to support and help you. Then, because I'm a toucher, I will generally say, "Can I give you a hug?" Didn't do it without permission.
That's right.
But if I have already determined someone's not a hugger, I'm going to say, "It was so nice being with you today. I'll see you whenever I'm going to see you." I think that develops the bond and the trust that we have to create with the families, because really the families and the caretakers, givers, are really more of who we're working with than the patient. And the reason I say that is because hospice gets their referrals too late. So you can't do much with the patient. But the family, the caretakers, the caregivers, where I would like to see end-of-life doulas have the time to create a relationship before we're talking days or hours or even weeks, before labor begins. You know, labor's 1 to 3 weeks. Before labor begins, we can get in there and do amazing work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you want to add to that?
I think part of what has shifted how we're being received is also the education that's been done. And again, Barbara, I'm just going to put some flowers on you. All the work that you have done to spread awareness about what the dying process looks like, what kind of support you can receive, what pain management looks like at the end of life, all of your booklets. They're used so often. They're everywhere. And I think as a result, people are learning a lot more about what dying looks like, what to expect in the process, and thus are more open to receiving the type of care. I think when you don't know, then it's much harder to say, yes, please come in and support. But when you do know, you say, God, I wish somebody was there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's in large part because of the work that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
It's true. I often think that people, they won't come to find us. They don't come seeking support unless they know that we exist. Nobody will look for a death doula if they don't know what a death doula is. And people now know a lot more what death doulas are. They know a lot more about what is available at the end of life. And I think that's shifting the needle some. But I also think that we may be heading toward a bit of a crisis of identity socially, where what has driven people for so long has been their work and the capitalistic structure that we live in. And I like to believe that we're starting to witness the ending of late stage capitalism. I hate to talk about AI because it is everywhere and I'm so tired of it. But I think as a lot of jobs, a lot of care gets outsourced, and what we've been so used to doing one-on-one becomes one with a computer or one with a robot, people are going to start seeking connection and start seeking more care. And in there, it's going to create an opportunity for people to really get real about who they are and what they care about. And I think that's going to continue shifting the conversation toward death as well. It becomes so much more ripe. It becomes so much more salient when we're thinking about who we are as opposed to who we're not, given robots, and who we're not, and what we need as humans. And what we need as humans is other humans, I believe. And this care is like the most human that it could possibly be. And so I think it's even going to continue moving in that direction. I am absolutely biased. Like I see the world and I see this through a very particular lens that says that every person gets to have the type of care they want in their dying process. And I think that doulas and the collaboration with hospice and the collaboration with doctors and medical care folks that also see the possibility to create models of care for every person, as long as we have those in place, then people get to have the care that they want when they die. And I think it's happening. I mean, we have this, we have you all. We have death doulas in TV shows. And did anybody see Frankenstein recently?
Not
okay,
yet.
I just saw it. It's so deathy, which it was back then too. But now it's like really deathy. Like the world is starting to shift around how we're thinking about and talking around death. It's changing. It's happening. But again, I'm biased and I admit it. Okay, I'm very, very, very biased. But I think it's starting to happen. Yeah, and it won't be long until we're seeing doulas and more conversation around death and grief and loss, and in schools and in the military and in HR and just in corporate systems, on death row and prisons, where we're going to start seeing more care around dying coming up. I believe.
I hope.
I hope. I think.
Yeah. Thank you. there's been some really incredible conversations today about dementia, and I was wondering if you guys could touch a little bit on dementia at end of life. I know, Barbara, you've said that it doesn't play by the rules. Can you expand on that?
Well, people with dementia doesn't play by the dying rules. You know, the three things you look for that says the dying process has begun is food, sleep, and socialization. Someone with dementia can sleep 23 hours a day for years, some are 24 hours. Someone with dementia can be totally withdrawn for years. It isn't until food becomes an issue that you can really put a timeline when death is going to come. Because if you don't eat, you don't live. And so when swallowing becomes an issue, when holding the food in their mouth becomes an issue, when choking becomes an issue, you don't go out and get the feeding tube or the gastro. You don't do that because you're not going to be able to fix anything. You offer, always offer. You give sips of water. You give sponging, or what's the word I want? Thank you. Swabs in the mouth to keep, comfort care, but you let life take its progression to death. That's my thought on dementia.
My thoughts are very similar. It's been a great honor to get to care for folks with dementia. I think a key component of the care is also caring for their caregivers, the folks around them that have been watching this slow progression happen and are oftentimes so deeply grieving, anticipatorily grieving, even without awareness that that's what's happening, as they've watched these little losses, as they've been present for these little losses along the way. I find that has been maybe some of the place where we've been able to show up best is by supporting the caregiver as they support their person through the process. Because as Barbara was saying, it doesn't take any linear paths. I mean, it looks one way one day and looks one way another. And what I think is most useful is when we're able to be with the folks that are in there every single day to boost them while they journey on this wild ride.
Is there such a thing as dementia doulas?
Yes, there are. Yeah, I feel so. We have quite a few in our community, in our Growing with Grace community, folks that do this in particular.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's a whole area that would be wise.
It is.
Yeah. What do you both think most people misunderstand about dying and about the actual physical experience of it, or the experience of caring for someone who's dying? I see so much confusion in my work as a grief therapist on the other side after someone has gone through the experience of being a caregiver, losing someone to an illness. And then they're so worried about how the death went, like the physical experience of it, the medications or lack thereof, the eating, the not eating. What can we do to help demystify some of that earlier so that people aren't so haunted by the experience of dying?
Well, how many watched Downton Abbey? Do you? Okay. Maggie Smith says something profound, and the next time you see her, and that's what people expect dying is going to be like. Because Grandma, we didn't see anyone else die except someone on TV. And so education is vital, so that I get emails all the time saying, Mom's been dead for 2 years, and I can't get the picture of the last hour of her life out of my mind. It was horrible. She made sounds. It was ugly. I'm carrying that because she didn't die right. Because we don't have the role models on what dying is like. Dying is labor. It's hard work. A woman pushing a baby and doing labor to get that baby in the world, it's not pretty. It's loud, it's messy. Dying is loud, it's messy. It isn't what people expect it to be, and it's hard work for the caregivers. So that goes back to education. We need our caregivers and everyone to know that dying is messy, and that's how it is, that nothing bad is happening. Because that's when she doesn't die the way Maggie Smith did, then something's wrong. And so we're back to education.
I totally agree. I mean, I would have said the same thing, but not as eloquently, and probably not with Downton Abbey as but did anybody here see Dying for Sex? All right. Fantastic. And also From Scratch, the adaptation of Tembi's book. The way that it's being perceived now is starting to change also. Folks, I don't ever remember what it's called, but I just call it the Smurf popsicle. The tool that's used at the end of life. It's a little plastic popsicle with a little blue swab on the end of it. Blue. Yeah, the mouth swab. It's so simple, but I keep calling it Smurf popsicle. Make it far more complicated than it needs to be. But those were present in From Scratch. I saw one of those. I think I saw one also in Dying for Sex. Like, they're starting to show what the end-of-life experience actually looks like. They're starting to apply more makeup so that people aren't still vital and just, cross their arms and die. But rather, they look a little bit more, they don't look like they did 3 minutes before they died. I think that the portrayal of it is shifting, and that needs to continue shifting. To me, that's one of the key things that people get wrong. I think another thing that they get wrong, or I wish that they would open up about, is the fact that they are grieving. And Claire, you probably have a lot to say about this. I think people believe that the death occurs, you cry a little, you maybe cut bangs, and then you move on. However, we all know that it's far more involved than that. It's so much more intricate that you're likely going to be grieving this death the rest of your life, and the way it shows up is going to be different. I wish that there was more education around what grief actually looks like, about the fact that it can take place physically, that, who you believe yourself to be may actually shift, that you feel rearranged on a molecular level sometimes, and that it's going to be a lifelong integration of this loss. That's another thing that I wish people would give themselves more grace about. But again, education, which you are doing.
I will also say that grieving begins the moment of diagnosis. It doesn't start with the death.
Yeah.
And most people don't even know that. They don't realize it.
Well, loss begins at the time of diagnosis too. That all the things that you begin to lose bits and pieces of that person or a way of life, a relationship, and you're thinking about all that's to come ahead too. So the grieving absolutely starts then. Yeah. But we grieve throughout our lifetimes. We know this, and we carry some losses with us forever. And some losses circle back unexpectedly when we aren't anticipating them. And so I think you're right. Just talking about both of these things all the time more often is important. And seeing much messier death on TV is also vital.
Yeah.
I also, as you were talking, grief is like a wound. And I have a scar on my leg that I got when I was a little kid. If I touch this scar today, it feels different than the rest of me. This wound that I got when I was a little kid was open, awful, bleeding. It was really, really hurt. And slowly it healed. Took time, it healed, and the scar was formed. Grief is like that kind of wound, and your special person can be dead for 20 years, and you can be in the grocery store and in front of the oatmeal and start crying and say, oh my God, he ate oatmeal every single morning, and I miss him. Something touched the scar, and you felt it. It was different than the rest of you. But to be healthy in your grieving, we have to get to the point of the scar and not have it be that open, gaping wound all the time.
Right. But it's still there.
Yeah.
Even when it's not hurting. Never goes away. No. Yeah. Do you want to add to that?
How's your grief, Barbara? How's your grief?
My grief is interesting, I think. My husband died 2 years ago at home with hospice, with family. And what I learned most, I think, in my grief is the first probably 3 to 4, maybe even 6 months after he died, I was so angry. I was angry with him. I would remember stuff, and we were married 62 years, and I would remember stuff. Oh, geez. In looking back, and at some point, I thought, I've got to clean this out and look at it and deal with it. And then I could really appreciate the good stuff. And so now I think probably not a day goes by that something will happen, and in fact, we did it just recently, like yesterday. I'll see you shortly. And he would go, don't call me shortly. And something like that would come up almost every day. He pops in, but I'm not really missing. I've gradually developed a life for me, and I was never a me. This was another thing that I didn't think about grieving, and that is, I graduated, mother, father raised me, went into nursing school right out of high school to a very strict house mother. 2 weeks after I graduated from nursing school, I got married, had a husband. So for 65 years, I was a we. And he dies, and now all of a sudden, I'm a me. And I didn't know who me was. I'm still learning who me is. But I didn't think about that process in grieving. And I had a guy, wife's dead, upstairs. I'm sitting with him, nurturing. We're in the kitchen, and we're waiting for the funeral home. And he's crying appropriately. I don't know how I'm going to live without her. I don't know how I'm going to live without her. And he goes, no, you don't understand. I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to wash my clothes. I don't know how much money's in the bank. I don't know how I'm going to live without her. We need living classes for us survivors. Have some cooking classes as part of your bereavement programs. Have some financial direction. If I didn't have an incredible son and daughters, I don't know where I didn't know what banks we had. And, we always say to our families, get this information. You need this information before death comes. And I knew that. And I went in with my notebook pad and my pen, and I said, Jack, you need to tell me everything about our finances. You need to tell me. Oh, Barbara, not right now. I don't feel up to it. Week later, notebook, Jack, you need to tell. Oh, no, I don't. After the third time, I knew he wasn't going to tell me. So called my son, said, and he said, it's okay, Mom. I've got it. It's fine. I know it. But then he found out he didn't know it all either. So it's really hard to get someone to teach you how to be a me.
Yes.
That was the greatest last parenting gift that my father gave me. He sat me down for months leading up to his death, and he made me get out a piece of paper and a pen, and he said, now write this down. Here's the first 10 things you have to do right when I die. And I was like, no, Dad, I don't want to do this. And I would cry. I still have the tear-stained sheet all these years later. You have to order at least 7 copies of the death certificate. You have to call Social Security. You have to call the morgue. You have to write an obituary if you want to. You know, all these things. And I had this little list, and he had me put my name on all of his bank accounts. He got me all organized and set up. And when he died, I went and got my little piece of paper, and I called the mortuary, and I did all my things. And it is an incredible gift, as I think so many of us in this room know, to do this for our loved ones. Death doulas do a lot of this work and help.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to offer is end-of-life planning, to sit with folks and actually go through all of the things that they might need, all the things that they should get in order prior to the death occurring, just to see if maybe we can ease the transition. Because once the death occurs, then they do have to transition to carrying out these tasks on their own, or wrapping up affairs of their loved one's life. And if we don't get the information before they die, well, then all the information dies with them. And then we're stuck trying to, I jokingly call it death doula CSI, to pour through their entire lives to get the very, very last bits of information. It's tough, and it can be made much easier. Does your son know how to cook?
Does he know how to cook?
Okay, good. Thank God. Great. Good mothering. Thank you.
Yeah.
We have so many death doulas and hospice workers here today. What advice do you have for them doing this work to continue to feel inspired, to take care of themselves, to check in with themselves ethically about their work and how they're moving through it? What advice do you both have for them?
It took me a year of working in hospice, my first year. I'm working with a bereavement support group workshop, and I'm one of the facilitators. And I'm the one that fell in a little heap on the floor saying, there's so many deaths, there's so many ghosts. And I realized there that I had to take care of myself first. And one of the ways, and there's many ways, you figure out what you need to take care of yourself. But I always went to the visitation, which they don't have as many visitations anymore, which is a shame, because visitations are visiting and you interact with people. Funerals, you sit there and you listen to someone else talk. And that's not what it's about. But I'll see, I got sidetracked now.
I'm still on funerals.
We love this one, though.
So where was I going?
Taking care of yourself with doing this work.
Yes, thank you. So I went to visitations, but find your grief ritual. Some people have a journal, and you write down the date and the patient's name and a couple of sentences about them. Some people have a little space at home with an altar or a candle. Some have the ritual of stopping at Quick Trip and getting a rose and putting it in a vase. Do something. And Hospices have grief memorial services. Not enough. Not enough for us. You've got to make it personal, and not that you're going to let it go, because you'll never forget or be able to be rid of, and wouldn't want to, all this glorious work that we're doing. But you've put a cap on this particular experience, and then you can move on. I think that's the key in taking care of yourself, is you put your oxygen mask on first, and then you will have the energy to be able to reach out and guide others.
It's so useful. We just wrapped a death doula training retreat in with at least one person I could see was at it. In Manhattan Beach, and our very last module is on business building and self-care, but it begins with self-care because that's the root of it. We must find ways to care for ourselves while we do this work. We must find ways to build community. I'm still juiced up from that retreat, so I still feel very strongly about this, how important it is for all of us to find folks that are doing this work as well and build community with them. I call them your deathy besties. Claire is one of mine. The community of folks that you can call, who you can talk about death ad nauseum and they're just down. The people that you can make the really dark jokes that nobody else will understand or laugh at. The people that can understand when you feel like you've reached the absolute end of your rope. Make community. There's so many of you all here. You can find folks, all right? So build your community, find your deathy besties, get absolutely close. Another important element is getting clear on your why and having that be the foundation of everything else. It's so easy to get wrapped up in the how to get this done. Sometimes it feels so big, the enormity of the grief and the work and how people are dying, and you hear stories and it just breaks your heart. It's so easy to get bogged down in all the sadness and the weight of this work, of the world that we actually want to see, as opposed to the one that currently is. It can feel huge. To me, it's so important that we keep clear on why we came to the work, because if not, we'll get lost in the how. We must get clear on our why. The why has to be greater than your how. Your why must be stronger than your how, because if not, you'll get lost in the how to do this thing. Keeping consistent, making sure that we are clear about the why, but also making sure that that why isn't getting lost under a lot of grief. Continuing to rid ourselves of that sludge that gets in the way of why we came to this and why we're moving forward, just so that we can move forth with a clear and open channel and heart to get to shift the world, to make it what we actually want to see out there.
I think also, as you were talking, it popped into my head. I think we have to look at our own personal history with death. In fact, I just wrote a blog this week about it, in that the first memory that we have of someone dying in our life and how it evolved and how we were guided, and generally that's because we were children. Someone's going to have died in your life. And what did that leave? What message? My message was that death is really scary, and if at 14 I am not old enough to go to my grandfather's funeral, but I can go to the mortuary in the dark with a open casket and a candle, and that's okay, then a funeral must be really bad. And so that was my first experience. If you're going to work an end of life, you've got to figure out your own ideas about dying and death, so that you can bring an open mind and an open being and not have it distorted your energy distorted by an underlying experience in death and dying that you're not even aware of. You know, when I do a hospice volunteer training or employee training, the very first session is about your own experiences with death. And then after that's explored, then the next session is, why do you want to be here? And then you go on from there. But those, to me, are vital. If in employees as well as volunteers, everyone needs to look at that first if you're going to work with end of life and be able to stay in it. That's the key. If you don't look at it, then it's going to be like me. And a year later, you fall in a little heap thinking, what happened here?
Yeah, I think we have an ethical duty in this field to a certain amount of self-inquiry and work that we continue to do on ourselves as we support others. May I ask your why, Alua? Why you do this work?
Oh, boy.
I'm going to ask you too, Barbara. You can go first if you want.
I feel pretty clear because it still feels clear within me. I believe that when we are living in relationship with our mortality, it is the key to unlocking how we show up in the world, how we show up for life overall. And that if I can get present with my death, it allows me to be present with my life, which ultimately helps fill out this experience of my life. Having been around a whole bunch of folks who were either really resistant or terrified or unclear and still wanted so much from their lives, I think that it's necessary for us to do the work while we're still living, to do little bits of it, because it's a big life work to be done. A lot of people wait until it's too late and they can't ever get it done. And so if we're doing it consistently, if I'm getting present with my life, if I'm getting present with my fear, if I'm getting present with my regrets, if I'm thinking about my relationships, if I'm thinking about my work, if I'm making sure that I'm authentic, if I'm making sure that I'm in alignment, if I'm consistently doing that work, perhaps I can reach my dying open. I can reach my dying with perhaps relief, and I can release when the time comes because there won't be too much else I'm holding on to. I want that for all of us. I want us to be honored for exactly who we were. And I mean everybody across all spectrums, for all the ways that I showed up. But that requires me to be authentic in my expression so that people can meet me there and honor that as I'm dying. I want everybody to have the wholeness, the richness of their human experience honored as they die. I also believe that if we can do that for people as they are dying, then we can also do it for people while they're living. And if I can honor the wholeness of somebody as they die, all intersections to their identity, every way in which they showed up, if I can do that while they are dying, I can do it when they're living. If I can do it while they're living, then there is no way I can dishonor them while they're alive. To me, the study of death, being with our mortality, caring for people at the end of life, is a surefire way to breaking down the systems that keep us disconnected from one another. We cannot honor dropping bombs on folks if we can see them in their wholeness. There's no way I can justify famine. I can't justify transphobia, homophobia. None of those systems can coexist with a system that reveres death. My why is so that every human recognizes that their life, their individual life, has some meaning, has some value, that they're not thrown away, that in fact they are something to honor. That's my why.
How am I going to follow that? Holy smoke. That was so incredible. Why do I do it? Oh, this is going to sound so egotistical, maybe. I think that's, and now I'm going to cry. I think that's why I'm on this planet. I think that's why I'm here. Is everything, if I look at my life, has led up to this work. And I'm really just a channel for the knowledge and the energy that needs to come out and people to have. I think that's why I'm here. Now, I have an incredible family, and I raised kids and all of that, but there was a point where my life just, okay, this is why you're here. Go for it.
We're glad you're here, Barbara.
Yeah. And also, thank you so much for sharing your gifts. Thank you for honoring that. Thank you for listening to it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, everybody, I think that's a good stopping point for us today. Yeah. I want to thank you both so much for all the work that you both do, for honoring your paths, everything that you have done with radical bravery throughout your careers, and everything that you have to come. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.